Annyeonghaseyo. Thank you very much for joining us at the Red Hat Forum today. We appreciate your time and attention. My name is Kingsley. I'm leading the infrastructure business group based in Singapore, where we are in charge of 3 different divisions within Red Hat. The first is the platforms, that's RHEL, Rev, the virtualization and OpenStack. The second one is storage. The third is the management portfolio, which is what I'm going to be focusing on today. So today at the entire forum, throughout it, you've heard about digital transformation. And we've also talked about something you might have heard of, the next generation architecture. Now, what do we mean by the next generation architecture? We're trying to get our customers to think in terms of changing the way that they have structured their organization to accommodate both today's business models and tomorrow's business models. Why is this important? Because you cannot stop what you're doing today that's generating revenue. Many of you are part of companies that have existing businesses that are doing just fine. But you also need to accommodate the next generation of business models. You need to evolve your company in a way that will modify it, change it, bring new business models and new revenue opportunities. And at Red Hat, we believe that that can only be built on 3 pillars. And you need all 3 of these pillars to be successful. Not just 1, not just 2, but all 3. The first is you must have an agile infrastructure. The infrastructure that you use to run your applications, to support your organization, needs to be adaptable, agile. And you've heard a lot about agile infrastructure throughout the day. The second pillar is equally important, that you are able to integrate with all your existing systems and future systems through automation. The use of REST APIs, the use of modern day technology tools that enable you to gather data from both your old systems and the new systems, increasingly with mobile. And there's a talk going on right now next door about how Red Hat's mobile application platform enables you to take advantage of some of those technologies as well. But the third pillar, equally important, is that you need to think about changing the culture of your organization in terms of how you develop your applications, how you evolve the new versions, the new updates, changing the business models very quickly, and that only comes about with a rapid delivery DevOps approach. So that is what we refer to in Red Hat as the next generation architecture. Now, this digital transformation that's coming about is putting increased pressure on all parts of the organization. From the CEO down, there is pressure to evolve new business models, to build things smarter, quicker, to do more with less. We've heard all these expressions again and again. But that pressure to do all this across a hybrid cloud, using all sorts of different techniques and technologies that evolve, puts pressure on a particular group that I want to focus on this afternoon, and that is the ops people. Who here would consider themselves part of ops? I'm part of ops. Just 1? 2? No more takers, right? 3? It's got to be more. You're part of the organization that is responsible for keeping things running, for the operations, right? Now, the last sentence here can be read in 2 different ways. The first is management has to support transformation. When I refer to management, I'm talking about upper management, the CEO, the CXO, the CTO. This is the suite of upper management that needs to be encouraging and supportive of using this transformation opportunity to change the business models. But the second way that you can read it is saying that management has to support transformation, and by that I'm referring to the management tools. How do we manage our IIT? And if you look at the 3 parts of the organization, there's the developers. They always get to play with the cool stuff, right? The latest languages, the latest development tools. They're the guys running around with the fancy Macs and the big screens. They're developing the applications. Next to them is the infrastructure team. The infrastructure needs to supply the hardware, the plumbing, that allows the developers to both develop the applications and then deploy the applications. But often forgotten are the poor guys on the end, the ops, right? They need to keep things running. And what you'll find is that unless they change their process, unless they change the tools and techniques with which they manage the infrastructure and they supply the infrastructure for the developers, they're going to be in a whole world of hurt. It's going to be trouble for them. So that is where I want to focus on, is Red Hat's management portfolio. Now, there are old ways of doing things and new ways of doing things. And if you look at this list, you will recognize, if you've been in the IT industry for 5, 10, maybe 15 years, you will recognize some of these old techniques, and then you will recognize the new techniques. And I will not go through all of them today, but for instance, let's talk about the golden image. 5 years, 10 years ago, it was pretty commonplace for you to create an image by installing the operating system, installing all the software, the latest updates, all the latest components, and then freezing that in a golden image. That golden image could then be used to deploy your application. You could deploy that standard environment. That was the old way of doing things. The new way is using something called a disposable approach. There's an expression that we use called infrastructure as code. Now, what does that mean? If you can capture the instructions or the recipe for building that image in a script, that script can be contained and stored in a repository, a code repository, that allows you to execute that same script as many times as you want on demand, on the fly, right there and then, right? Once that image is finished and you no longer need it, you can just throw it away. When you need a new one, you start the process again very quickly. The advantage of this is that if you have a change in any of the components, if the operating system is updated, if one of the components of the software image has been updated or exchanged, then the next time that you execute that script, you then have the most up-to-date version. And by storing those instructions in a repository, you can always read it, you can reference it, and it's code that you can execute to build the infrastructure. Does that make sense? So we've moved from an old approach, the golden image approach, to the disposable approach. And many of these have similar stories. Now, what are we doing all this for? Why does Ops want to change the way from the old way to the new way? In essence, we want to build frictionless IT. This is what we're trying to approach. If we can get to a point that we make it as easy as possible for the developers to consume infrastructure, we can make them as productive as possible. Now, there are some companies that go to far extremes to make it comfortable for the developer. If you work for Google, they give you free massage, nice drinks, they do your laundry for you. They make it very, very nice for you to stay at work late and be a developer. Now, Red Hat does not provide those kind of perks, but we provide a management portfolio, a suite of tools that makes it as easy as possible for the developers to take advantage of the infrastructure. And we believe that there are 3 ingredients to really providing absolute frictionless IT. We want to eliminate the roadblocks, eliminate the troubles from IT being provided. The first ingredient is easy. We all have smartphones. When you use a smartphone, it just works. It's simple, it's nice. The pleasurable experience of starting up a new application, or if you want to sign up for Gmail or Dropbox, these are all very simple and easy to use applications and services. So the expectation today is that IT tools should be just as easy. Are they simple to use? Is it easy to get started? Do the IT tools gather the correct information automatically that you don't have to type it in again manually? The generation of IT operations people that are coming in today have an expectation of that kind of ease of use. And we make it an objective to try and make all our tools easy like this. The second ingredient is fast. Because we are moving at such massive scales, today you have 10 customers, tomorrow 100, maybe the next day you will have 1 million customers, we hope. But your tools have to be fast and have to be able to scale. The third ingredient is modular. Are we making sure that the tools we provide integrate with all your existing systems and existing sources of data? When you get your new smartphone, you expect it to connect to Facebook, to Dropbox, to email, to all the different systems. You expect it to open up your door, to connect to the Wi-Fi. That's the integration aspect that we expect from our modern day electronics. The same way that we would expect our tools to be modular and integrate with all of our existing systems. So as I go through the rest of my presentation, think to yourself, is he telling me about something that is easy? Is it fast? And is it modular? Because that's our objective, to provide that. So with that, I'm going to introduce the Red Hat management portfolio. And at the moment, there are 4 key constituent tools to that management portfolio. Now, you will be familiar with some of the names, but Satellite, the top left there, is probably the oldest tool in the block. If you are familiar with RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we use Satellite to deploy updates, manage the inventory, audit the control of your licenses or your subscriptions, so that we manage that for you. That's Satellite, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. The second tool, CloudForms, is the result of an acquisition. We purchased ManageIQ some years ago. At the time, ManageIQ was rated by VMware as the best tool for managing a VMware environment by VMware. So that was quite a compliment. We have since taken the tool, ManageIQ, we have open sourced, as we do with all of our products, we've open sourced the project, and we've rebranded it as CloudForms. Now, CloudForms today integrates with many, many public clouds, private clouds, different hypervisors. It can even help to control SDN, the software-defined networking, storage, and even containers. The third component is our most recent acquisition in this portfolio, which is Ansible. Who here has heard of Ansible? A few of you? Yeah? This tool is amazing. It has a cult-like following around the world. I have visited many cities across Asia, and everyone I go to, people love this tool because it's simple to use, and I'll go into why in a minute, but it's simple to use, it's simple to describe what you want to do, and it's an automation engine. Just here in Seoul, a few months ago, we had a meetup, and we invited anyone in Seoul who was interested in Ansible to show up. Over 50 people showed up. 50 people who have been using Ansible because it's a publicly available, open source project, Ansible, and they've been using it for quite some time, and they were very thrilled to hear about it. So Red Hat acquired them recently. The fourth tool that I'll go into is called Insights, and this is Red Hat's first entrance into the software as a service market, SaaS. So we provide a service here, which I'll go into, which describes for the customer the vulnerabilities that they have in their existing systems based on symptoms that we can detect. We are listening in on the systems to find out, is there something wrong that we can predictively analyze and know that there is a risk of something bad happening. So I want to talk about 4 analogies now, which will help to highlight where these all fit together. The first analogy I'll make is a very familiar sight for many people around the world, UPS. What do these guys do really well? They deliver packages. That's what they do. They're very good at it. They are the experts. If you're a small company making jewelry and shoelaces or whatever, or you're a large company like one of the big retailers shipping thousands of packages a day, you can rely on UPS to deliver your package. They're very smart at this. They know all the addresses. They've got the trucks. The little men in the brown outfits are very good at picking up the boxes, delivering them. So you don't have to worry about it in your business, how you're going to get that object or that product to your customer. So the analogy that I'm making here is that for IT, why should you worry about how you get the bits, the upgrades, the patches out to all of your hundreds of systems? Why should you worry about that when that's not your business? That's not your core competency. Instead, you can offload this headache, you can give the work, outsource it to a tool, and that is Satellite. It makes sense not to worry about that. There's a great story with this. IKEA, the furniture company, they are in over 90 countries worldwide, and they have over 3,500 systems around the world managing their inventory, managing their stores. When the shell shock vulnerability came out a while back, shell shock, we, as part of their support, Red Hat provided them with a fix, an update, and a system to deploy it. But they were able to use Satellite to deploy that fix across the world in under 3 hours. Now you know that the CTO who's running IKEA can sleep well at night because he can deploy that fix very efficiently across 90 countries in only a few hours. Very efficient. So that is essentially what Satellite does for you. Now the analogy is interesting because it takes it to a certain level, but let's take it a step further. If you know that you can reliably have an inventory, a description of all of your systems, and you know that they're at a certain level, they're at a certain update, patched, networked, etc., then you can actually make sure that you have a standard operating environment. And this is a key part of the agile infrastructure philosophy, that you're standardizing the environment that all of your developers work on. If everyone is working on a different operating system with different versions, it's a nightmare. We know that. So Satellite can help to uniform the operating environment so that everyone's on the same page. All right. The next analogy I'm going to make is looking at these controllers. Whose living room is similar to this? We all have a DVD player, a CD player, a TV. Now we've got new home controllers. We can change the lights and the fans and the video cameras and everything, right? More and more controls are showing up. The problem is that every single one of your vendors is using a different button, some of the volume on the left, some of the volume on the right. The colors are different, the shape is different, the position is different. So it becomes a bit of a nightmare, right? What we would like to have is a controller of controllers, something to manage all of them. Now, I'm not selling this product, but this is a very smart solution. It's called the Harmony. You can check it out. It actually allows you to get all of your controllers, put them away, and use one device. So the expression single pane of glass comes to mind, where you can control all of your controllers with one. The analogy in the IT world is you have a manager of managers. I'm interested, as we're all in IT here, how many of you have got a laptop, a tablet, a phone? Everybody, right? How many of you within your organizations have infrastructure on premises? So you have part of your infrastructure on premises. Yeah? Most of you will, I think. Then I say to you, how many of you are using multiple different hypervisors? Some of you might be using VMware. Some of you Red Hat virtualization. Some of you Microsoft Hyper-V. But then we go to the public cloud. And we support, Red Hat is one of the few companies I know that embraces all of the public clouds. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, right? We support the collection of all of those public clouds as well as all your private infrastructure. So what I'm getting at here is, with all of these different interfaces, wouldn't it be nice to have a single controller, a single manager that allows you to interface with all of those different footprints? And that is Red Hat CloudForms. So the analogy is important, but again, we can take this many, many steps further. If you can control all of your public cloud, your private cloud, your virtualization, what you can then start to do is, now that I have it under control, I can allow only certain groups to do certain things. And this is where I'm drawing attention to this, the service catalog. It's a self-service portal system that you can allow only some groups to do certain things by a policy that you've defined. So for instance, Team A, you can use up to 100 instances a week. Team B, you can only operate on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, etc. You can put in rules in place that actually control the access to your systems, but more importantly than just the control, you can allow it to be done on a self-service mode. This is a critical part. We have an expression in IT called picnic. Anyone heard of that? Problem in chair, not in computer. Get the human out of it, right? If you can stop the workflow being blocked by someone who has to approve or someone who has to manually do something, you can make it a self-service model. Our customers that have implemented CloudForms have seen a massive increase in productivity because they can allow their developers that are requiring infrastructure or need something to happen, they can allow them to service themselves. They can ask for something and it'll just happen because the policy is in place, if it's allowed, and so on. In addition, CloudForms has some amazing features like smart state analysis. We can look at VMs that are not even running to make sure that the version and the updates and the patches are current. We can audit and log. We can charge back and could create logs and data which say which division, which group is using how much infrastructure. And this is an important part for breaking down the costs of IT. All right, so that's CloudForms. The next analogy I'm going to make, whoops, there we go. The next analogy I'm going to make is the car manufacturing industry. We all know Ford changed the world when they went from single cars being manufactured, one at a time, and everyone would bring the parts to the car, right? They changed it by being a conveyor belt, where you could actually have the car moving along the conveyor belt, and then one person was responsible for the one tire, the other person was responsible for the bumper, and as the car came by, they just manually did the same task again and again. Well, now, with the new way of manufacturing cars, this has been taken to a whole new level with automation, with robots. I love watching the company Tesla, the electric car company. This is an image from one of their manufacturing plants. It's incredible how they have advanced the system by getting humans out of the way. Now, that's not to say we're trying to take the jobs away from the humans, right? We are the smart ones. We know how to build the tools. We know how to do the things that the tools need to do. But if you can automate them with a robot, with an automation system, then you can eliminate the problem of a human maybe making a mistake. And that's what they've done. If you haven't seen the video of Tesla's Gigafactory on YouTube, it's fantastic. You should go and look at it. They literally put raw material in one side of the factory, and outside the other side of the factory, a new car comes out. So it's almost completely automated, no humans involved. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't have one of these tools. This is cool stuff. This is the latest Lego automation tools, right? The center box, the EV3, is the brains of the toy, and you can program it and control it. But on top of that, you can add lots of different pieces, grippers, rollers. You can put sensors, things that can flash lights or measure the temperature or optically see. And what I'm getting at here, the analogy I'm trying to make is you can modularize, you can add in, integrate different interactions. This is essentially what Ansible is. Ansible is a core engine that you can then augment with lots of different playbooks or modules. I'm not sure if the word playbook translates very well, but in American sports, a playbook is a set of instructions or a set of rules that you say, this guy runs here, that guy runs there, this one passes the ball, this is a set of instructions. If you can think about that in the IT world, it's a set of instructions that execute various commands to make something happen. To install a database, you need to make sure the drive is ready, you need to allocate the space, you need to authenticate the network connection, etc. These are all playbooks. And Ansible has very, very many modules and playbooks that allow you to interact with lots of different systems. You can provision systems in Amazon, in Google, in Azure. You can control Windows boxes, Linux boxes, etc. You can automate just about anything. Now, this is a freely available open source project, Ansible Core. But here is the warning I have for you. This is very, very powerful. If you can execute a set of instructions on one machine, you can also execute the same instructions on 1,000 machines or 1,000,000 machines. It doesn't matter. There is no limit to the scale. And it is very, very frightening how many companies are still doing lots of tasks manually. If you're in a bank or a financial organization which is very protective of their data, and you have allowed a human being to execute the steps to make a system secure, that human being might make a mistake. They might forget one of the steps, and that could expose your system to a vulnerability. So instead of letting that to chance, you want to automate the process of hardening a machine or securing a machine with a playbook, a set of instructions. But the warning is that if you get that wrong, you could do it at large scale and cause a lot of trouble. So this is where the product Ansible Tower comes in. This is our proprietary product, which we've acquired from the Ansible company, and it allows you to scale and automate the automation. So, for instance, you can take the instructions of an automated playbook and restrict the access to only the right people that can access it. Now, because the system uses an agentless SSH connection to machines, you need to store the credentials, the passwords to get into those machines to make them work. So Ansible Tower will protect the security credentials to make sure that no one has access to them except those that you have designated with the correct authority. What this effectively does is take all of the power of Ansible and puts it behind a user interface, a system with which you can execute all these commands at push-button simplicity. We like to refer to this as push-button infrastructure. If you need to allocate enough machines to set up your whole application, 50 machines with all the databases and the network connectivity and the app servers, you have that all in a playbook. One person can simply click a button and it'll happen. But more than that, Tower will then log those requests, who did it, When did they do it? What was their reason for doing it? So from an audit perspective, logging and control of this is very important. The final analogy I'm going to make is health. We have been, as human beings, we've been collecting information about the human body for thousands of years. We are observant of certain symptoms. When we see someone coming down with a cold, we see someone exhibiting certain symptoms, we know that that is indicative of a disease or a health issue. So the analogy I'm trying to draw here is that Red Hat has had 15 plus years of experience watching customers use Linux. We understand the problems that they experience. We understand some of the things that can go wrong. If you've seen the movie Minority Report, great movie with Tom Cruise, they were able to predict that someone was going to cause a crime, was going to do something wrong, and they were able to preemptively stop that person from committing that crime. This is the same concept here. When you go to the doctor, you trust that the doctor is knowledgeable and understands how to look for certain symptoms that will allow them to know that something is going to go wrong. The same thing is true with Red Hat. By observing your systems, by observing the activity and the data logs and so on within your Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems, we can, with quite a bit of confidence, we can predictively analyze that data and say that you are at risk for something that might happen in the future. And that is what Red Hat Insights is. It is a crowdsourcing of all the data from very many people using the same system, and from that data we can assess if something will go wrong or something might happen. Now, just to put your mind at ease, we are not watching what you're doing on your machines. We're not collecting the data. It's very much anonymized and neutral data. But if it's consistent with other people's problems that we can see is in the same light, we can help you to prevent those problems from going wrong. Many, many years back, it was difficult just to get a computer up and running to make it last. That was when the IT was new, right? IT world was new. Then we started to find out that we could make lots of IT inexpensive. So we put thousands of machines out there so that if one of them went wrong, the system would keep running. That was the redundancy phase, right? We created enough extra capacity that we could be resilient to an error or resilient to a failure. The next phase that we're getting to is actually to preemptively know that something is going to go wrong and remediate it to fix it ahead of time. And this will ensure even better uptime for all of the IT infrastructure out there. Now you might ask, once you've found something that is wrong, how do I fix it? Well, you can go back to the other three tools that I just mentioned. Ansible to automate it, CloudForms to manage all of your infrastructure, and Satellite to deploy those updates. So that insights can feed into the other three, and the other three can help to remediate or take action to fix all these things. So that's a roundout of 4 analogies that might help you to see where all this management is going. My last plea to you is to work with us in a very different way. We have been talking to customers for many years. As a vendor, I have visited many, many customers, shown them the PowerPoint, shown them the presentation. But we want to turn the conversation around. We would like you to share with us what the difficulties are you're experiencing, and what we call a discovery session would allow us to listen to you as the customer, not just for half an hour, but maybe a whole half a day or maybe even one day. On a whiteboard, if you can describe the troubles you are having running your IT infrastructure, running the management and the operations, we can then help to determine what you need to fix that. This is much more beneficial than me simply telling you what Red Hat has in terms of tools. If you can share with us, then we can help you better. So I encourage you to contact Red Hat and our staff to set up a discovery workshop where we can help to work with this. So with that, I would like to point you to our websites. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of links there. redhat.com/management will describe the tools I've just been talking to. And I'll be out here this afternoon if anyone else wants to ask any questions. But with that, Kamsahamnida, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.